Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Raw and Uncut Live. We have a very special show for you. Part two. Last night we had a special edition with my guest, my friend, and my brother, Derek Higgs. Tonight I got a plethora of guests. It's gonna be an amazing show. Squad, come on in. Let's get right to it. Um, um, We got youth pastor Tamika Shoulders,
Really?
um, who is amazing, and she definitely not only speaks for the heart of our young people in the community, but our Christian young people in the community. I literally had to beg her to get on here. Y'all already know Andrew. He's a regular. He needs no introduction. So this is going to be a little different of y'all hearing him. Mostly it's biblical debates. Oh my God, my sis Taniqua Strong is on here in the
Hello,
house.
hello, hello. Hey.
She's amazing in the political arena, but she's also a youth leader in her local assembly. Um, we got Phoenix. I did an amazing panel discussion with her, and I followed her on Facebook, and I just love her mind. And she's also a very talented singer. Go check out her music video. And she also has some amazing views, and none other than the Mr. Community Activist himself, Tony Herbert. I am humbled and honored to have him on here. Let's get right to it. Um, so in this pandemic, we've seen a lot of police brutality in various areas. But we've seen two heartbreaking ones. One where there was the young man in Central Park, where we seen the lady act really belligerent and basically make up a whole lie about her being harassed because of his skin color. And what most of us watch a modern day lynching on camera, where we seen a police officer put his knee on the neck of an African American male who was uh, pleading for his life. Um, and he uttered the words that we heard 5, 6 years ago. I can't breathe, and was totally ignored. Um, I want to go to the young ladies first, only because we don't really hear too much from them. I want to start with Tamika because you have a son, an
Correct.
African American son that you're raising. I want to
Correct.
hear your view, and then we'll go to Phoenix and then Taniqua.
I mean, I'm lost for words like everyone else. As a mother raising a black son, my confusion or, where I'm stuck at is how do I teach him how to engage with police officers? How do I teach him how to engage with those of authority when it seems like there's nothing, that we can do that's right or wrong? Um, there's no right way to engage the police at this point. I can tell my son, make sure he's respectful, don't speak back, keep your hands where they can see them, all of the things that, we have drilled in our kids' lives for since this issue has arose, right? It doesn't seem to be working. And so I'm stuck at a place where it's like, what advice, what direction do I give as a mother? What direction do I give as a youth leader right now? I'm speechless.
Phoenix.
Oh, well, I feel like I've waited a long time to really express my views on racial injustice only because I can tend to have a more militant perspective. Just from my lineage and my history. My great grandfather was a member of the Marcus Garvey agenda.
Wow.
And I feel like unknowingly, genetically, I'm predisposed to kind of have those views. I've never really like I've always been told, be respectful when you're in front of law, but somehow in my inner instinct, I never felt like that was ever going to be enough. Um, I was looking at Kiki Palmer on Instagram yesterday, and she made a very great point, and it was this learned behavior of racism and the traumatic experiences that we carry as African Americans. There's a dual side to that. And the dual side to that is that we have a young white America and white millennials who come up and they're predisposed to an entitlement that subconsciously they may not even be aware of. And so moving forward, we like us learning and trying to unlearn this treacherous past is going to have to be a duality amongst us and white people. They have to unlearn their entitlement, and we have to recognize our worth and become united as a people. So I have a way more militant perspective on that, and it's really just us protecting ourselves as a society and learning how to defend ourselves and stick together and stay united, because we have tried the other way for a long time and we're still having the same discussion.
Wow. Saniqua, please.
First and foremost, thank you, Dre, for having me. It's an honor to be on here with
No
with
problem.
you and with everyone. And oh, definitely Tony. We meet again. But first things first, what I would say is that I'm at a point now where and I've been saying in my posts all throughout the week, it's time for a revolution. I am beyond talk. Talk is talk is not helping. We must be intentional with, as Charlemagne the God said, be intentional towards the Black agenda. He said, the best apology is going to be the Black agenda. And
Mm.
unfortunately, that's not on the table right now. That President Biden, even though he tried to recant his statement, but that's not on the table. And our government wants to mirror it by saying, okay, we're gonna give people like Stacey Abrams, we're gonna give her a chance, or okay, because we have an African American woman that's a mayor, as if they are doing something for us. And so then when we look at these different injustices, where you you telling me that this man is on the ground, he's telling you he can't breathe, and there was nothing even, if you're not even being an officer, you just being a person with a heart. There was there
Mm.
was so much hatred in him that he, even when the man saying I can't breathe, that you stay there. And then you took your time. It was, he took his time, and really you can see how heartless our nation has become. How heartless people, and to be honest with you, we have all types of racism. You have gender racism. Where some people rather hear a man talk on such and such versus a female. Then you have the racial racism. So then we have these different types of racism. What are we doing? Are we just going to
Wow.
have conversation? What do we do beyond the conversation? I want to see people. Let's get to the grassroots. Let's get to the grassroots and impact the communities. Let's empower the communities. Why are African Americans dying with COVID-19? Because some of them are not being empowered. Some of them, they don't have the right development in their organization. They don't have a Trader Joe's nearby. They don't have a Whole Foods nearby. So that's where I stand. I hope I didn't take you off the subject, but
Nah. We appreciate it. First of all, everybody that's watching, everybody that's on here, please like, please share, please tag. This is a conversation that we need to have. We have awesome community leaders on here. Whatever questions you have, there's no crazy question. Please share it with us. I want to hear from Tony real quick.
Tony. Doesn't have a singing group. Well, my perspective is going to be, I agree with a lot of what's been said, but my experiences, I'll be 56 next week, so my experiences have been a little bit different with regards to a lot of what's been happening in our community as a whole. I'm not just restricted here in New York. I do advocacy work in DC and Philly, and I chair a number of civil rights organizations. But I'm going to be as blatant as I can with no disrespect to anybody.
No, please.
At the end of the day, I understand we got to fight the power. I understand all that. But let me just break it down from different aspects, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
First, let's talk about the central part, hate crime, which is what it was. This woman who was caught up in her privilege, and what have you, felt that she could, she could manipulate this brother, not understanding his pedigree. And at the end of the day, thought that she was going to have him running scared because of her stupidity and her disrespect for understanding what the rules are and what have you. And I'm fortunate enough to be happy to say that we pushed the envelope on that a lot and are now in a position where we have not only the district attorney looking at it, but we also have the attorney general, and we also have the Commission of Human Rights. What I have a problem with is that a lot of politicians, and you're going to hear this repeatedly from me, did not take a position until until we made noise. And we had people like Borough President Eric Adams get involved after we decided that we were going to go there, based on some brothers in the community who said, you know what, I got a phone call that said, Tony, we got to go to Central Park and we've got to make some noise. And if you understand the significance of Central Park, all of Central Park was primarily a very productive, very influential Black community before they took it and made it what it is today. So the significance of us going there was that much more important. Couple that with what had taken place a few years ago with young brothers who were falsely accused not more than a block and a half away from where this incident took place with this woman. With that being said, my thought process here, and it falls back in the hands of our elected officials, because truth be told, ain't nothing happening unless they all get on the same page. And they're not going to be on the same page if we don't hold them accountable. And I tell you that because checks and balances primarily says you can't just not go out there and vote. You've got to vote, but you've also got to follow up that vote. But you can't vote on just a presidential election. You've got to look at what's happening at home. All politics is local. You've got to look at the city council person, the state assembly, the state senate, the congressional person, the district attorney, all of these people, the mayor, the freaking public advocate, all these people have a succinct input in what's happening in our society, and we don't hold them accountable. We allow them to scapegoat. We allow them to sit there and give the impression that they're doing for us, but they don't come looking for us as Black folks for our votes until it's time for election. Outside of that, there's another part of the district trying to get their votes.
Wow.
And they're providing all of the necessary resources over there. So we're getting the crumbs. So we have a bunch of Johnny come latelys in our community that look like us. And they all stand there talking about, hey, look, you know what? I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm an activist. I'm this, that, and the third. Hell, we've got people who actually take these cases of police brutality to a Jewish lawyer and get paid, and then turn around and talk about their civil activists. So the focus needs to be on how we come together and what have you. And I speak not only from this particular incident, and I'll talk about Minneapolis in a second. And I don't want to hog up too much people time. I'm sorry. But the focus should be, how do we come together? We've got a lot of our millennials and our Gen Xers have to be the ones, the standard bearers to carry the brunt of what's going to be taking place, because you guys are going to be inheriting the craziness that's going on. We're going to be long gone. Me and all the baby boomers and all this stuff, we're going to be gone. And then now, what do you have left if you don't usurp our energy, usurp what came from the civil rights movement, and manipulate that to the benefits of what you got going on, all that other stuff? And I want to be very clear, because it just happened, and this is why I want to transition into Minneapolis to a degree. But just to digress for a second, this woman is going to get her day in court. It's going to happen. There's too much pressure on politically for it not to happen. But the Commission of Human Rights outlined it and clearly said that probably what might be here, based on the statutes in the Commission of Human Rights, is that she might get some community service, or she might have to pay a fine or pay some restitution to this individual that she basically almost had killed and whatnot, to this brother. So we're monitoring that. And let me go there, because some of y'all might like these politicians, but I have a problem with a lot of them, because again, none of them said a damn thing until we pushed the envelope to make a phone and put the phone call in and said we're holding a press conference. Then all of a sudden everybody wants to be involved. If that is the case, I don't hold a position of government and what have you. Why am I now having to do your job when you should have been the person out front telling me, look, I'm doing this. You need to come and join me, because I'm a part of the leadership here in this city. I walk around with this mayor, and I'm talking about these politicians. I'm talking about Eric Adams. I'm talking about Jamani Williams. I'm talking about Yvette Clark and Hakeem Jeffries and Greg Meeks and all these people that have these titles. Where the hell were you when the shit jumped off? And now all of a sudden, everybody wants to be a part of the program, because the media is going to be there. They want to show you that they did something and whatnot. And I don't subscribe to that fake crying shit that Jamani Williams does. That's just to get TV cameras to look at him so he can get the soundbite. Nobody's stupid over it. Means that's just the reality of what we're dealing with and what have you. I always tell people, you got to listen to what they're not saying, not what they're saying, what they're not saying. And what's clearly being stated is, if you have the mayor's phone number and he comes running with you, Robert Cornegie and all these people, he comes running into the community and y'all up there glad-handing each other and hey, he gave me some money for a community center that never opened. How is it that you want to turn around and say that you can't get him on the phone to deal with the very issue that's affecting your community? And you say you represent Black folk. I'll leave that point there. But this transitions into what's happening in Minneapolis as well. What happened to that brother and what have you is deeply concerning because it keeps happening. But it keeps happening because, and this is where I got to call my brothers out, because we're not together. We hold up the gauntlet to say to them, you got to come through us and what have you to get elected, and you have to be accountable to us. We're too busy doing the crabs in the barrel mentality, worrying about what's, he got the best Jordans and this, that, and the third, or he's getting a piece of the cake. But none of us are sitting at the table saying, brother, I am my brother's keeper. What do we need to do to provide the safety of our families, our kids, and our women? We're not doing that. We're too busy fighting with each other because everybody's, might be concerned about you, Drew, that, Drew got a show, so he think he all that. That's the BS that's going on in the background.
That's what they say, Tony. That's what they say.
This is the BS that goes on in the background. So we're too busy catcalling and being disrespectful and not working together. So these people see that there's a weakness. So you know what they do? They go and they try to appease our women. They throw all of the consumer items and everything at our women because they know that they're the decision makers now. They know that anything that they need from us, they got to go get our women because we as men, we ain't organized. So we're sitting there fighting from the ground up and not getting anything because we're too full of shit of ourselves. That's a major issue in our community. And as long as we don't get together and power up with the women, we'll never get to a point and what have you that they're going to respect us. What you see rolling out around this country is exactly what's going to keep on happening. And the ignorance of our young people out there who just don't get it. You don't agitate that racist. He's waiting for you to do that. You wait till you get your day in court, and that's when you go after him. You're never going to win with a cop on the street. You never. So I say to my sons, my three boys, 18, 24, and 27, do not argue with a police officer in the street. And what have you? You let them put you in the cuffs. You don't answer no questions. You get to the precinct. You tell them I want to call my father. And then I'll deal with it from there. But you sitting there and trying to give up information and not transitioning the proper way, he's looking for an excuse to justify why he whooped your ass.
Wow.
That's what we're dealing with in our society. And our young brothers, I just saw a brother getting handcuffed. It looked like he was in, they had palm trees. So I don't know, it might have been Miami or something. I don't know. But he's sitting there and the cop just rolled up on him and he's sitting there beeping. He's calling the cop. That dude is looking for an opportunity to bust you in your mouth, and you're just agitating him. And keep in mind, although he wears that uniform, he's human. And being human, he's sensitive. And by being sensitive, he's looking for a reason to justify the position of authority that he has to whoop your ass. And you're giving it to him by agitating the situation, and he's piling on a way to actually charge you for something stupid so he can get you back to that place he can beat your ass and probably treat you like a Sandra Bland. So people don't get this. They don't understand that this is what we're dealing with out here. My attitude and all of my advocacy is around understanding how people to communicate to our people that the problem not only starts within our community, because everybody keeps trying to say that, you can't say that these races are killing us, and then next you know you're talking about black on black crime. It has a correlation. And the correlation is this. If they see that we don't respect us, how the hell are they going to do? How the hell do they think that they should respect us? And we're killing each other. So these are the variables we're dealing with out here. And unfortunately, that's just my opinion and my experience of having done that. And if I got to put it out there for those who don't understand the dynamics, I'm the president. And this is not braggatory. This is the advocacy work and the commitment of being able to educate yourself. I'm the president of the what do you call it? So many damn organizations. I don't know.
Well, all right.
I'm the president of the NYCHA chapter for the National Action Network under Reverend Al Sharpton. I'm also the director of his citywide task force that deals directly with issues and crisis in our city. So I have authority using his name and his relationships and all the shit that he brings with him to go after what I need to go after. And that backs up these mayors and all of them because they're scared of him. That's the only tool that I need to make that happen. But at the end of the day, I also serve as the citywide chair of the Civic Engagement Committee for the NAACP and my own organization, Advocates Without Borders. All of those I bring to bear to say that this is where I've actually learned this process of trying to educate myself on how do I advocate to make sure that people get access to what they need. And at the end of the day, and what have you, you know what my biggest problem is? Getting black folk to realize I'm there to help my own people. I'm not there for no grandeur. TV don't do shit for me. I was a celebrity before I started doing advocacy. I had my own TV show. I did really well. I bought a house and some cars. I'm good. So I use TV now as a tool because I know that these politicians hate to be put on blast. And
wait, Tony.
They don't want to be put on blast.
Wait, no, Tony, you said something, and I want because
they don't want to be put on blast.
Andrew kind of gives real hard on the politicians. So you kind of said something about you're here to help the community. Andrew, you coming from Queens and you having your issues or different ideas with politicians. Explain to him why it's really hard for us to accept, you know what I'm saying, help from politicians.
You want me or him?
Well,
Andrew. I want Andrew.
It's various factors. If I can even speak to what was said about even in terms of my question is this, because my brother is echoing something that was said from a police officer on a previous live, kind of like, when you're dealing with the law, with the cops, you kind of take the L for the moment, let them put you in cuffs, let them berate you, let them do whatever they're going to do. How long are we supposed to let them do that? And here's the thing: it's usually not it's not a one-off situation. It's not this one time they berate me. It's not this one time they stop and frisk me. It's not this one time that I am subjected to the indignities of being handled by them or mishandled by them. It's compiled, one on top of the other, on top of the other. And what's crazy is that we allow, or we speak to the humanity in the police officer, but we don't speak to the humanity in the person that's being dealt with. And so, me as a man, how often am I supposed to stuff my emotions down? How often am I supposed to stuff my rage down? How often am I supposed to forget about the times that the officer before you mistreated me, and the officer before him mistreated me, and the officer before that mistreated me? And so we always speak to, what we're supposed to do or what we're not doing. And I feel like what that ends up doing is, even when you are presenting yourself to the community as an ally, or you're presenting yourself to the community as an advocate, it doesn't allow the community to hear you, because you're not being sensitive to what the emotions and the feelings and the pain that the community is dealing with on a continual basis. To tell a person to take the L, that's easy to say. It's not easy to live. It's not easy to experience. That every single time that I come across an experience with a police officer, I'm triggered because of every experience that I had prior to that. Not only am I triggered by every personal experience, but what is imprinted on my heart and what's imprinted on my mind is every headline and every news story that went across about my brothers who were mishandled by the officers. I'm stopped by the police. I'm remembering my personal friend Sean Bell and remembering what happened to him and the things that came this close to happening to me. So how long are we supposed to just pretend as if we're superhuman and we don't have feelings, and let me take the L this time, and then I'm going to take the L next time, and I'm going to take the L after that, and I'm going to take the L after that? I don't think that is I don't think that is I don't think that's fair to expect and to even to verbalize that to a hurting community. They are not going to hear you. They're not feeling you. They're not seeing that at all. And then the other thing I wanted to speak to is in terms of they can't respect us until we respect ourselves. That's ridiculous. You have a responsibility based off the tax dollars that we pay, that pays your salary, to respect us. You swear an oath to respect us. We don't have to wait for you to find a reason to respect us. You have to respect us because you are empowered by society to do a job and to uphold the law, and to serve and to protect. So at the end of the day, it's not that we we're deserving, or we have to earn, rather we have to earn your service and protect. You are paid to do that. It is your job to do that. You swear an oath to do that. So at the end of the day, it is ridiculous. We don't say that about any other community. When we start talking about killing one another, there is crime amongst every ethnic group. It is statistically
Everybody kills
the
proven
everybody.
white
that
people kill each
crime
other more than
occurs
we do.
within the ethnic group. White people normally live with white people, and so the crimes against white people is usually by another white person. Hispanic people tend to live around Hispanic
Usually over
people, and so
insurance
the
money.
crimes that they commit are usually against another Hispanic person. Asian people live with Asian people, and the crimes they commit are usually against other Asian people. And it's only amongst black people that we hear this term black on black crime and self this, that, and the third. And at the end of the day, I think it's ridiculous for us to uphold, or for us to think that certain standards are going to be had by criminals. They
Hmm.
are criminals. We don't say that, why would you shoot another white man? That's your brother. It's only in our community that we have these unrealistic expectations for ourselves.
Wait, so
So
you
I'm about
brung
to,
up
I'm getting
no
ready
no
to.
no. So you brung up something. You brung up something that is very true. Most people who are close to me know I am a very I watch a lot of Oxygen and ID, and most of the crimes in the Caucasian community is against the Caucasian community. But
Yeah.
Tony, you said something that kind of like disturbed my spirit. Uh,
Wait,
with
hold up.
regard.
Let me. First and foremost, I didn't know you. This was one of these situations you're gonna be attacking. If this
No,
is
no,
what this
no,
is about, I didn't come here. I came here
I'm
to
not.
share information.
no, 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 no.
And I'm opinionated like everybody else. But if it's gonna be an attack thing, that's a whole other atmosphere for me. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with my brothers and sisters
No, no,
on
no, no,
on,
no, no,
on
no, no, no,
opinions.
no, 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 no. We're not attacking, but you made a statement. So the statement that you made, we have a right to dissect it and come to an understanding. So you made a statement concerning the police and how you said they won't respect us until we respect
Until we
ourselves.
respect
I was
ourselves.
giving you time to clarify that because you didn't
All right.
really.
Well, he did a lot of talking. So let me speak to that real quick. And I didn't specifically say the police. I said other people will not respect us until we respect ourselves. You directed it towards the police. When it's all said and done, we have people out here looking at us and look at the comments that's being posted on these riots and these protests that's going on, and people making all these negative connotations with regards to. I'll give you an example. In Minneapolis, why are we looting? Why are we shooting each other? And all that saying that we're there for justice, but at the end of the day, we're committing injustices against businesses and what have you that actually, I do believe one, if I'm not mistaken, is owned by a brother. And that was looted. That was destroyed. So now his whole career or his livelihood is gone. So when I speak to that, that's the kind of things I'm talking about. If we're going to go out there and fight for justice, we can't go out there and go against our own grain to make things happen. Now, to speak to what this brother said with regards to people understanding me in the community, bro, I'm not trying to appease everybody in the community. I'm trying to appease those people who need help, the ones that need a voice, the ones that's not getting any assistance and what have you from the very people that's supposed to say that they got their back or that they have an oath to serve them. At the end of the day, I've got more than 1,000 people I can speak to that I've helped in the last 5 years alone and situated with regards to issues of housing and you name it, anything across the board, whether it be labor, whether it be funerals that I help to pay for in the whole nine. So I don't challenge, or should I say, I don't second guess my ability to communicate to my community. It's what people want to hear. And if you don't want to hear it, then I'm not your advocate. I'm not your ally because you chose not to hear that. So you might want to go to somebody else. But let me be very clear
Matt,
about something, bro. I've been out here busting my ass for 22 years as an activist advocate for more than 15. I've never turned my back on helping anybody in my community, nor have I ever said to anybody in my community that I can't help you if I couldn't. I still try.
Matt, pardon
So I'm
me, Matt.
clear
Matt,
about
interject.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, interject really
Yeah, go
quick.
ahead, Phoenix.
I with all due respect, Tony, this is not in any way an assassination of your character. I believe that you have put great effort into our community. I think what comes into question is the fact that a lot of people who speak like you aren't living like you. They aren't advocating like you. They aren't facilitating in the community like you. They don't. Their opinions and this black on black crime, these statements that they're spewing out. There is no back. There is no backstory to it. There is no experience to it. They haven't protested. They haven't advocated. They haven't done these things that you've done in the community. They're just spewing the same things you're saying because they're watching you say it, and then they're feeding off of that energy. But there is no back work to what they're saying. And I think that the miscommunication between generations is this energy of like, I'm gonna talk at you and not to you. And I think that that's where the disconnect comes, even from millennials to Gen Z, is that a lot of times people feel spoken at and not to. So when you say until we respect ourselves, we won't get respect from them. At this point, when you have people who, like a Issa Rae, Black women and young Black men who are successful, highly successful individuals who still get treated like that, I believe that they're the epitome of people who have respect for themselves, yet they still have these type of experiences where they go into environments where the white privilege and white entitlement tries to pacify them and pacify their greatness. And I think what Andrew was saying is, as Black people, we're not given techniques on how to deal with anxiety. We're not given techniques on how to deal with depression. We're just now, I'll probably say around 2010, we're just now really opening up as a community of Black people talking about mental illness, having emotional issues, dealing with depression. And I think that this quarantine has only emphasized those issues because we're in a society where we're constantly moving and we haven't had a moment to sit still and sit with our thoughts and sit with our feelings. So then on top of not having a way to deal with these emotional issues, someone tells you, well, when somebody comes in your face who's been harassing you for years, to hold your peace, but we're not giving techniques or maybe meditation or on how to mentally cope with that, a place to go and let those anxieties out, a place where we can go and talk to somebody to talk about those frustrations, but we're constantly told to pacify our energy. Right. Where does that energy go? Where are we supposed to put that energy? What is the catalyst for us to handle this in a healthy way besides just telling us to respect ourselves? And I think that that's the question we're really asking. How do we come up with strategies and techniques, fully functioning techniques for us as emotional beings outside of Black human beings and African Americans? How do we deal with those things outside of that?
But I
Phoenix,
think also,
let me just add this, Drew. Phoenix, I mean, everything you said is valid. I totally get it. Again, like I said, I'm raising 3 young Black men myself, outside of nephews that I have as well, all young Black men who have been stopped. And I had to give them the lecture. I had to sit them down on how to deal with, with the police. And I'm going to reiterate what I said. So it's very clear. And you spoke of technique. At the end of the day, there is no technique on the street and what have you, because the rules on the street is different depending upon who you come across. It could be a cop that had a bad day. It could be an individual who's just pissed off because, like my brother here, he just got tired of being stopped. So the confrontation is going to be totally different. But what I say clearly is this, and there's no advocating about it. When you interact with somebody in the street that has that particular quasi thought of authority, you can't win an argument with a cop in the street. I don't care how frustrated you are. At the end of the day, it's going to end up one or two ways. Either that person's going to tell you go your way, or he's going to take you to the precinct, and that's how you're going to have to deal with things. Better off that you go to that precinct. It ain't taking no L. You're just making sure that you make it somewhere safe so that you can get the right tone and put yourself in a position to advocate for yourself by being able to pick up the phone and call a family member or call in an attorney to deal with that as later on. That's what I'm saying.
All right, so let me ask you guys a question. First of all, that's a great point, Tony. But what happens to so now we're talking about obeying, we're talking about not resisting, we're talking about which makes perfect sense. You know what I'm saying? If it's a battle that you cannot win, why even
let it go?
Interrogate? Right. That was a great point, Tony, because why agitate the person that you feel like, okay, I'm gonna take this L. Like you don't have the manpower that they have. That's cool. But what happens when a woman like Sandra Bland, who pays attention, who does what she's supposed to do, and mysterious ends up dying in a prison cell?
Bro,
if I can speak to that,
hypothetical. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened in that.
I'm just asking. If I can speak to that, I think what it is that one has to know when it's time for the Martin Luther King approach and when it's time for the Malcolm X approach. Mm-hmm. And with that will come, and to be honest with you, it's going to take trial and error. You may have someone like Tony, because he's been in the grassroots a little bit longer. He may be able to say, okay, it's time for a Martin Luther King approach. It's time for a Malcolm X approach. But I think all approaches are still valid. And my concern right now is that there's not enough people, there's not enough Tonys, there's not enough, I love the grassroots. So I'm going to be hands-on out there, making sure you're empowered. But there's not enough people that's really out there infiltrating the communities on their feet and really saying, okay, because what's happening? Okay, so now George Floyd died, right? So that's going to die down after a while, right? Everyone's going to forget about it. Who's still going to stay true to the agenda? But I think that's what it is really knowing when it's time. Martin Luther King was a prophetic voice. His prophetic voice, he knew what to do, when to do it, and how. And Malcolm X was, okay, listen, we're going to teach you white supremacy, and so this is how you go and you roll this way. And I think it's understanding, and like you said, I believe Phoenix said it. It is that generation disconnect. And like Sandra Bland, that is something that is a true issue and it's disheartening. And when does we as a people say this is it? And I think that's where the people in Minneapolis is like, this is it. We had enough. And I think the nation is feeling it, because here it is. We're still trying to get healed from what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. We're trying to get over that, trying to get over what happened with Breonna. And so, now this happened. And then, but not only this, what made it even worse is because New York, we lost Eric Garner. We know that phrase, that phrase alone, I can't breathe, is like, what?
Right.
Triggers.
That
triggers.
That was a trigger. That was a trigger.
And can I speak? Can I add to that real quick? Just that's what compounds it, or that's what exacerbates the situation, is because there is never recovery time given. There is never a time there is no a time where we could breathe between these incidents. There's never it's trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And that's why, even me personally, even speaking to the situation in Minneapolis, I find it hard to demonize these people that's looting, and I don't agree with it. I know it's not right, but I find it hard to, at the end of the day, when you're at your wit's end, and we're talking about Martin Luther King, who said that riot is the language of the unheard. When people are fed up, it's human nature to explode. When you've tried every other way, we've seen so many incidences of people complying and still losing their life. We see Philando Castile on live and explain to the officer who stopped him that he had a firearm, still get shot. We've seen people with their hands up, still get shot. We've seen people running away from the police, still get killed. And so at the end of the day, when these incidents happen, and then the conversation lends itself to, well, we should have and we could have, and it makes it that much harder, because even when we do, it still ends up this way, and it's situation after situation after situation. And quite honestly, I wish we as a community, or we as a people, can reserve that energy for what we are going to actually do to address the injustices. We're always talking about what we failed to do, or if we would have dressed right, if we didn't put on a hoodie, if we didn't whatever. At the end of the day, what are we doing to redirect those energies towards addressing the injustices, of putting things in place to handle the injustices?
Nah, I mean, you're on point 1000%. Like, I was born in the 60s, bro. I was born 1964. I've been and growing up in the 60s and going into the early 70s, I've been called nigga. I had white boys in Bay Ridge I was going to play baseball with, as a 12-year-old, going to go play baseball in Bay Ridge and have them jump out of their cars with bats and throw rice and shit at us. So nobody can't tell me I didn't have my experiences, what have you. But do I let that make me who I am, or do I make me less than who I am? And my choice, quite frankly, was to get out of that situation so that I can come back and fight it the right way. By standing there and being in that confrontation and having 9 others that I had to be worried about that was with me, man, we knew that we were in an atmosphere that we couldn't win. So we had to make a decision to say, let's do the right thing. Let's get the hell out of here. Let's not stand here and try to stand this off. And let's get back to where we know where we're comfortable and let's regroup to figure out how we're going to deal with this. And we did just that. We wound up having an opportunity and whatnot because at that time we were cool with a congressman. And we sat with him and told him what we experienced. And they took us back to that community, that very community. And the same people that we had the problems with wind up being the sponsors of our baseball team. So there's ways of
Can
handling things.
May I ask
There's
you a
ways of
question
handling
though?
things.
Where everything that you're saying has validity, right? And I'm gonna say this about myself. I became an activist in my late teens because I was self motivated. I'm gonna be transparent. My mother suffered severe depression, and when you grow up in certain circumstances, two things happen: either you become just like that situation, or you become the polar opposite. I became a very super self-motivated, studious person. I self-taught. I read books. I was reading the Willie Lynch letter at 17 years old. My friends affectionately called me Sister Soldier in high school. I was considered a black militant activist at like 18, 19 years old. And I say that all to say I was self-motivated, right? But where that came from is I had a grandmother who was good friends with Marty Markowitz, who was Brooklyn Borough president for many years. She had a relationship with Annette Robertson, who was a councilwoman in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, New York. I was exposed to that. And because I was exposed to that, it gave me a confidence to pursue that lifestyle and to go after those things. On top of that, I always wanted to work. I like to make money. So I would get jobs canvassing for non-for-profit organizations. So a lot of our past politicians have put money in my pocket. I knocked on doors and I tried to get them votes. Whether I totally understood their values or their principles, I did at the time, I did not know those things. But I was still learning the business of not-for-profit and advocating for political advocates. I say all this to say, my friends knew nothing about that. They were not confident in that way. That was not instilled in them. I would try to educate them on things, but their lack of self-confidence in not being educated from and it being instilled in them from their own families, they didn't know or have the sense to say, I'm not going to handle this situation in this type of way. I'm going to go home, or I'm going to call this person, I'm going to advocate. And when I would say things like that, it was so far-fetched to them. They would look at me like I was crazy. Like, girl, get out of here. Ain't nobody gonna listen to what you gotta say. Ain't nobody trying to hear 17-year-old black girl from Brooklyn talk about injustices. These type of issues, I'm 34. These type of issues have been bothering me for 20 years. This is before social media. These are the type of things that I would pay attention to and notice. And I would have friends in the projects and I would watch cops harass them just because they lived in the projects. This is something I've lived and breathed. I didn't need these instances to happen. These instances only create more rage. And to answer your question about the rioting, it's not correct, but that's where that comes from. That is misplaced rage. These people are so angry, they don't know what to do with it. And it's almost like a psychosis where you become out of yourself and you are bat crazy because at this point, nothing makes sense to you anymore. And every time you try to make sense out of something, something else happens to deter you from believing or having faith or having optimism in the very law that you're supposed to be able to count on. And then when you see people go to court and these people get let go or they get a tap on the wrist or they get these easy sentences, you're supposed to still have faith in this same system. It's very hard to tell people to believe in something that's constantly let them down over and over and over again.
You know, my background.
Wait, hold
It's a
on.
show, Pedro.
No. I wanna ask something mainly for you. First of all, Tony, that was an amazing story. You're better than me. I don't know how I would have handled that.
No, I'm not. I'm not better than you, bro.
With
We
you growing up.
we all
And
learn differently.
no, yeah, but I wouldn't have did that. Somebody would have got stabbed. I don't know if it was the Jamaican in me, but I wasn't going. But you did say something, and being the fact that you and Taniqua are really more of the political people here, I really want you guys to answer this question. Something was said as far as once this is over, once it blows over, our attention span is very short. We're furious about something, then we move on. 2 weeks later, we forgetting about it. So for somebody like you and Taniqua, who I don't know how old you were, Tony, when you started this, but I've known Taniqua for a little while. I know she started young.
14.
All right, so 14, and you're going to be 56, 57, you said?
Yep.
56? All right, so since the age of 14, and Taniqua doing it for as long as she's done it, what made you stay consistent? And I could vouch because I've seen you doing work in the Bed-Stuy, Brownsville areas without cameras, and any of that. So I've known your consistency. So for young people like us, who I'm pretty sure you hear our hunger, our anger, but at the same time we want a solution. So in order for us to be consistent, like you and Tanika have been consistent, what is some things that you feel we need to do to say, you know what, once all this blows over, in order for them to take you serious, you got to keep following. So what's some things that you could help us with so we could stay on this path once people stop talking about George Floyd?
Well, first you got to understand this whole situation in Minneapolis, like it was in Ferguson and all that other stuff. There's agitators that's starting this. They get everybody wired up because this is
Okay.
what they do. They go there and they create the problems, then they break out, and then they leave the residents there to have to deal with the aftermath and whatnot. And we see that all the time. But what I would recommend, first and foremost, you've got to take this kind of a format like what you have right here, and you got to ram it down the throat of these politicians and get yourselves to the table. When it's all said and done, everybody wants to talk about our young people, but they never have them at the damn table. And I recognized that when I was 14, because I was, I don't come from no silver spoon, background. I was born and raised by a single mom, just like most everybody, and what have you. My father lived around the corner. I lived in a tenement. He lived around the corner in a brownstone with a pool in the backyard. You understand what I'm saying? I lived as a homeless person for 8.5 months because we were kicked out because of gentrification, and lived in an abandoned building of squatters for about 8.5 months. So nobody, when I go out there to advocate, can't tell me I don't understand. I used to get my water out of a hydrant to bathe in and all that stuff. So that's why I'm angry as I am with regards to the lack of representation and the lack of having the ability to bring people like y'all to the table, because these politicians are looking out of one eye. They're blindsided to the fact of, how do I get to the next level of my career? Forget the fact that I'm supposed to represent these people. So how do you fix this? You get to the table. You force their hand. You take a bunch of young people and y'all sit here and say, here's our demands. This is what we want to make happen. And if you don't do this, we're going to galvanize those folks that we know that are 18 years old that can vote, and vote your ass out. That's how you get to be effective.
Wow. Thank you for that, Tony. Taniqua.
Really, you can't really even come behind Tony. But I start with this. Accept the seed die in the ground, it'll abide it alone. When that seed comes to life, what happens? It brings more fruit. I think when we as Black America will not see these moments as just being another person, a Black man that died, and okay, once it's over, that's it. But really taking the time and meeting the legacy of that man. What is the legacy of that man? So here it is, listening to media. Media has been saying, okay, he was about the community. So here it is, we had a man that's about the community. What are we going to do? Being consistent with the community. And I think what causes such a disconnect is because, like I said earlier, there's no consistency. Another thing, don't be a lone ranger. We as African Americans try to do everything by ourselves, but you're going to need a community of people. And they don't have to look like you. And they don't have the same ideologies as you. But it's community of people that, you know what, at the end of the day, we're all for the agenda. What is the ultimate agenda? Is for what? To promote justice. And justice is righteousness. So at the end of the day, it's promote justice. And those are really my two key factors. And being true to the grassroots. Knocking on the doors. Let's think about the US Census. Who even, there's people still don't even complete that. And then what happens is then eventually when you don't see your same color in the office, you try to figure out, well, why? Because you didn't take the opportunity to fill out the census. And then what? Then we find ourselves back at square one again. So how can we fight Black agenda when we allow people in office that they don't even have it on the table? They have us on the bottom of the tadpole.
All right. That's amazing. I wanna present a solution. But because being the fact that all you guys is here, I definitely could use your ear. But before I do that, my sis Tamika, me, her and Drew, we're in a group chat. She's the psychoanalyzer of our crew. But this is what she does as a day job. Um, what I really want you to just real quick, Meeks, go into the minds of those that are rioting, those that are angry, so we could have a better understanding of where they're coming from. Because I think we
I,
should empathize and sympathize with them as well.
yeah. First, I want to respond to what Phoenix said earlier about the poor coping mechanisms, that our people have. As a social worker, I see all the time. I've been blessed to like move in a different geographic, and the Caucasians, their children are in services from early. They are involved, and they really push like wholeness with. Whereas like our community, they're in the now that they need services. The kids are displaying so many different behaviors, and the black families, they just do not want to admit that something is going on, that attention needs to be brought to this behavior, this problem. So just there, we don't have the resources, we're not connected to the people that can help us to teach us a better way of coping, a better way of dealing. So that's part of the problem right there, because they're watching their parents adjust to trauma and adjust to all kinds of things that they've dealt with in their childhood, and it's a learned behavior. So my mom acts out, when she's upset, and when I get upset, I'm going to act out. And I think that's really what we're seeing right now. And like somebody said earlier, people feel like they're at their wits end. Another thing that I was enlightened earlier, some of this was strategic in the sense that the target that was targeted allegedly promotes, I guess, like racial injustice, or they promote and support, they give financial support to that specific police station. So it wasn't like they just picked the target, randomly. It seemed like they had some type of plan, and it was strategic in what they did.
Mm,
So, that brings insight and, a different perspective to why the rioting began in the particular stores that they targeted. Obviously there's just some people who have poor self-control, and they're just gonna do whatever and get carried away. So I think we're seeing like a mix of, we're trying to be strategic, and then people who just do not have that self-control.
so I spoke with Andrew earlier. So everybody that's on here, I know a lot of you guys are busy, but a lot of people was calling for revolution. A lot of people was calling for, and I'm a spiritual person. Um, I love Jesus. Um, so
Says the man that's gonna stab somebody.
I said if I was 14, Tony,
Vengeance is
I didn't
mine, saith the Lord.
I
That's
was
right.
I was talking about if I was 14.
Vengeance is
Um,
mine, saith the Lord.
but I want you guys to meet me in your all black on the steps of the Brooklyn Borough Hall this Saturday at 10 a.m. Um, I want to I want to put together all of you black business owners, um, and I want us to put a real boycott together. Whatever your business is, I want us to support you. I want us to take the money and the power out of their pockets, um, by supporting our own. So whether you own makeup, t-shirts, soap, deodorant, whatever it is, um, meet me at 10 a.m. at the Brooklyn Borough Hall steps, and we'll start there. Tony, you made a face.
No,
No,
this is my bedtime, so
There's
I'm just going along.
oh, that's Phoenix.
there's a flyer that's circulating around social media. I actually took a screenshot of it. A friend of mine posted it. I don't know who the group of people pushing this agenda is, so I'm not going to co-sign it yet. But I did see a flyer suggesting that we choose Juneteenth as well as a day to boycott corporate white owned businesses and businesses that could be being funded by white supremacy, and taking back the black dollar. And I thought that that would be super symbolic as well, to choose Juneteenth as a specific day
Yes, let's
to
do it then
abstain
too.
from spending our money on people who don't respect us or respect our existence. And I think that that's dope. So even starting from Saturday and then Juneteenth, doing it again, I think would be really dope, to make a powerful statement. Because like Tony said, and one of the main things I agreed with what he said is like our dollar and our influence is we underestimate it a
Right.
lot. And even from the core, I think even for him speaking about politics, people may not respect your race, but they're going to respect your dollar.
They're gonna respect
And
your
if we
money.
could hit people where it hurts, they don't have to like us or respect us. But when they're missing that deficit, especially like when he was saying about us as Black women being consumers, we are major consumers. We are into style, we are into hair, we are into cosmetics, we are into maintaining a certain image. And that stems from slavery. And there's a lot of other systemic reasons why we feel like we need to keep up our appearances a certain way. But that's another conversation. Nevertheless, though, I do believe in the power of the Black dollar. And I think that that's where it needs to start. We have to start trusting each other, start pouring our money into each other, and patronizing each other and taking it out of the hands of people who are not going to use it to create a law and create bystanders that are going to protect us and us as a people, period.
Do you
Can I
guys
ask?
know? I'm sorry. Go ahead, T.
So with the whole boycotting and not spending money, right? Totally for it. But does it count if people are just gonna spend double the day before or the day after? You know what I mean? Like I just
No,
Right.
and that's the thing.
That's true.
We have to practice discipline. Like how many times are we going
Right.
to allow this
Consistency.
to
right.
happen? We have to be consistent. So I even put
And we have
on
to
an
hold each
early
other
post.
accountable.
I asked
Right.
everybody if you know a Black-owned business. I put it under the status. Tag them, so we can start patronizing that. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And
Three,
I
three,
think. Go ahead,
three
Tony. What you
people.
was?
Three people you need to reach out to. I mean, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer or whatever the case may be, but this has
No,
been
no, no.
tried.
Talk to me, because
This has
you're
been
an OG
tried.
in this.
But you guys now have the atmosphere and the attitude and hopefully the energy that you could probably take it over the hump that everybody else wasn't able to get it over. You want to reach out to Mark Anthony Jenkins,
Okay.
who runs the African American Chamber of Commerce. I believe he's got a Facebook page. You also want to reach out to John Sanders from the Black Business Alliance, and you want to talk with what's his name, with the Long Island African American Chamber, but they have a chapter in Queens and in Brooklyn and whatnot. I get you those names. Those are the people you want to talk to if you want to really get to Black businesses. Those are the
Yes.
individuals you want to talk to. And that can probably help with the process of what you're trying to do. But I just want you to also understand something too. It's not about just our money. I mean, our money is the most significant aspect of it, but they feel as long as they come back and cut a deal with some brand new Jordans or something like that, that we'll blow it over. Whatnot. So we've got to get that
Right.
mindset and the psyche. We've got to really get into the heads of our people and say, look, if you don't fight now, it's a losing battle tomorrow. And that's why I say they don't respect us, not only from the aspect of how we treat each other, but also about our dollar. If you go in the
Right.
Jewish community, the dollar stays there for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In our community, it stays for less than 24 hours. You understand what I'm saying? And then look at the power of our vote. And this is where my frustration overall is, because I've been spending a lot of time in New York City public housing. And that was one of the reasons why I asked Reverend Sharpton to start his chapter. If you look at where the Black and Hispanic vote is, there are no more Black communities. I stand here and ask you to tell me where there's a Black community. Because the realism is, if you're looking for it, the only place that you're going to find Black and brown people is in New York City public housing, because that's the only real affordable housing right now. And if you look at that, there's 500,000 registered voters that live in our developments. If anybody wakes up that sleeping giant, we can change the dichotomy of how we're treated with our vote.
Yo, I wanna. We are out of time, but
Yeah,
I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy Thursday night to enlighten, encourage, and have this amazing dialogue. Tony Herbert, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Um,
I learned a lot today too. Trust me.
we know you're a busy guy, but we just want to say thank you so much for fighting for us for all these years and advocating for us. and your work is definitely not unnoticed. And hopefully,
We appreciate you.
we got
I
some
appreciate that. Thank
Joshuas and
you.
Elishas that's willing to pick up your mantle and keep fighting for Brooklyn like you've been doing for all these years. Phoenix, thank you so much for taking time out of your
Appreciate you for having
schedule.
me.
Yo, good luck on the new video. I hope it blows
Thank
up.
you.
Taniqua, thank you so much. I know you had a prior call with your young people, but
Thanks for
thank you
having
for
me.
rushing that and coming to hang out with us. Drew, you get no thank you. You're a regular. This is what you do. But thank you. I want to thank
Nah, you need
Tanika.
Drew. Drew's a
Oh,
five star. You need him to be healthy.
that's a whole fact. But thank you guys so much. Join me this Saturday, 10 a.m. on the steps of the Brooklyn Borough Hall and all black, and we're gonna let our agenda and our revolution be started. Thank you so much. Tune in next week for the next Raw and Uncut, 9 p.m. Same place, same time. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, redemption. We coming, y'all.
So, so